All right, we had a bit of a technical issue. I hear you, Julia. Sorry, my military bosses held me a little longer. I apologize. All right, I'm clicking live. Good evening. This is Yulia Latynina and Latynina TV. We have our Wednesday guest, Alexey Arestovych. Good evening, Alexey. Good evening. All right, I am mostly interested, and I think our viewers are interested too. What is Putin expected to announce on the 15th of July? But I suggest we start with an operative situation to explain why we're looking at 15th of July. And I remind our viewers to not forget to subscribe to our channel, to share, to leave your likes, because it matters, especially when you subscribe during the live cast. If you're watching it in English, please subscribe to the privateer station. Operative situation, I think our dear Putin, he actually spoke today that will use some measures if you'll continue attacking on the south. But I think this is not from the good life. This is because he's getting nervous, because things don't quite work out. There are a couple direct reasons why it is not working for him. First of all, it is our strategic operation on taking out the logistics of his military. And the second is the painful reaction to the loss of his military commanders, which occurred in plenty in the last 7 days, and also lack of success on the key directions where they expect to do some referendum, because unless they capture everything they want to capture, they will fail. So why Kherson is sensitive? Because apparently they did bring troops from Zaporozhye region. We actually did hit them successfully with HIMARS, and we destroyed the command of the 20th Division almost entirely, and the forward operations base of 49th Army, where they lost a general as well, and people of the level of the head of artillery, the first vice commander, the commander of logistics lines. The thing is, when the command of that level gets destroyed, these are key figures, older officers who have certain skill set, which is very difficult to acquire outside of their profession. So it is difficult to replace these people. In Ukraine, people often think that soldier decides everything on the battlefront. Great idea. In reality, there is a big influence of the command on the battlefield. So losing that is a very bad, very sad thing to face. Also, we've been cleaning up their supply lines. We had 50 successful hits with HIMARS, not a single miss, so this is definitely painful for them. They also expected to push originally from Lysychansk to Kramatorsk, and they wanted to go through the north line to cut Siversk and capture it. Did not work. It's been 4 days of their efforts, zero movement. This doesn't add to any successes, and Putin really responds very painfully to the loss of anybody in their higher command level. One can understand him on the human level, that there is a very specific tradition of special services. In special services, when the cadre officer dies, that's a catastrophe. They try not to fight directly. Agents and agent networks can fight, engage, and die, but cadre officers should not. Usually it indicates a very big disaster, very big damage, and when the whole forward operating base gets demolished, that basically indicates of the loss times several. And at the same time, the polling comes out from Russia that not a single Russian wants to give even 10 rubles or 20 cents to support their military in that operation. there'll be a video with Alexey that we recorded, who did another polling about the Russians' attitude to this war. They're not too optimistic, but they're definitely not too pessimistic either. Yep, not too pessimistic. So these events that happened, they did cause him to lose it a little, and he should not be able to afford to lose that. Because the goal of the commander in this situation is to show that nothing happened, keep smiling or yawn and say everything is good. The moment he gets that excited, agitated, means the public will be looking at him thinking, what is going on? Because what happened that our glorious leader who flies with storks is so depressed and so angry? And I would also say that our special services deliver our direct messages to at least 2 to 3 million Russians closer to Ukrainian border about the videos about their ammo dumps exploding, logistics lines getting destroyed. So we are trying to spread the information of what's happening. That also heats up the temperature in the room. Personally, I don't think there's going to be anything happening on the 15th. And I'm usually diving deeper into the details, but if you zoom out, it did help me to actually talk to you. I kind of got this idea from the conversation with you that about 95% of what they say is directed at internal audience. And if you do zoom out, you look at their statements, indeed, mostly everything they say is directed at their internal audience. 386 peoples, millions of different citizens, and they're trying to gather them together, to unite them. This is difficult times, we gotta join. We gotta use more military tools, invent something new. Or, like somebody said yesterday, let's recreate USSR. Yeah, I kind of am skeptical about USSR. In army, there is an unspoken tradition. An officer should never give a command that will not be executed, because the moment the command is not executed, everything falls apart. That means that soldiers start to figure out, oh, we don't have to. And if Putin issues that command of recreating USSR again, it will not be fulfilled, and that'll be his the king is naked moment. And even if they'll manage to assemble something, it will not be a USSR in its full scale. It'll be like Lukashenko, Yanukovych, and Putin. It'll be like dragging a semi-decomposed body into the middle of the feast. That'll really cause pause and questions. But if they bring this up, I'll be glad to explore that and observe it, because Putin's regime, basically with that statement, will minus another half a year from their legitimate staying in power. We gave them, what, year and a half? 2? That'll take 6 months out. And what USSR? These people who are running the show in Russia now, they would have been executed in USSR many times over already. And speaking of not following orders, there have been some. Kiev is not taken, Southern Corridor is failing, Donbass advancement is not going well. Do you have a feeling that after Lysychansk, there was another order to follow and do the large-scale advancement, but it was not fulfilled? It was actually given, but they're trying to fulfill it, but they don't have enough material supplies to do that. I'll show you an interesting map. It'll be a little funky, but I'll show it to you on my phone. It's a pretty good picture on my phone. See the red and the lack of red? So the picture above with a lot of red, that's before HIMARS started to take out artillery dumps and ammo dumps on the Russian side. And the lower picture with almost no red, that's the result of 4 days of HIMARS cleaning up the artillery dumps. They have no shells left. Basically, they are not shooting at us anymore. That's just a difference of 4 days. And they've pushed for those 25 kilometers in some parts only because their artillery advantage. They don't have it now. The only advantage they have is a lot of infantry on the armored vehicles. They used to have also artillery to support them. These days they don't. And we do have infantry too, but we don't have armored vehicles. So that's the subject of next negotiations and support. Canada said they'll send some, Germany, Poland, Britain. And second of all, the artillery starts to slack because of HIMARS. So Russian taxpayers, whoever is listening to us, how much do you think was spent on Russian military from 2008 when they decided to remake their army after the war in Georgia? Tens of billions of dollars. How much do you think your country built of that army when the presence of 8 machines from the West stopped the strategic advancement of Russian army? You mean just 8? Just 8 vehicles? Yeah, that's all we have in HIMARS. And today, what's that guy's name, Birkov, who's in charge of defense industrial complex of Russian Federation? Yuri Borisov, sorry, that's his name. Here's the screen. That's before and after. To the left, that's before, Russians' attacks, pretty active, and after, there's almost none. HIMARS. So he was taken out, and he's got a bunch of orders of Hero of Russia and all that. He spent 20 trillion rubles on Russian army, and Putin is taking him off now. That is the best grade for what's going on. So, right now, with that poorly functioning mechanism, what's called Russian army, he's trying to capture the Donetsk region. Okay, we're waiting for that. We're waiting for them in Lugansk and 6 other places today with our HIMARS. So that explains why he's getting so nervous. There is no success. Even propagandists of Russian military are already saying that there is trouble on the front. And they already are saying that they don't have any solution against HIMARS. And Americans already read some data in the open sources. The Americans are getting ready to give us another 12. Julia, I cannot hear you. I think your sound disappeared. Sorry. We had that issue at the beginning of this cast. Still no sound? No, sorry, no sound. Okay, I can hear you. All right. So I was told that this is our Skype that has issues, not me. I'll even try not to move, but I don't think I'm causing it. All right. Main question. What can Putin do? Because, as you said, he is in anger over what's happening. I don't think he's in anger. I think he is more in depression. His anger, if anything, is directed not at us. The situation with us is clear. He's probably directing his anger, if he has it, at his own people, his military complex. So there'll be some repressions in that system in Russia. Those who promised previously to deliver will be ousted, and they'll find new ones who would say, yes, we can. So that wave of cleansing will likely touch both production and actual military offices. Scenario, let's announce war, use nukes, and then call for a full mobilization. I probably cannot discount as well, but we should not probably give it more than 0.5%. And they don't have much resources left, that's the problem. So whatever they're doing now will not enable them to win on the front. I have a full feeling about, based on their behavior in Kherson region, that they decided, and that's based on smaller signs that we see, that they will be giving up Kherson. They want to keep Lugansk and Donetsk areas, but in Kherson they're already kind of folding. So what are these signs? Well, it's activity of Russian military, the roster of the troops being sent there. People who want to hold the land, they don't throw these kind of troops to support it. They also change the activity of their special services in the cities, which indicate not holding the territory, but more like defensive maneuvers, defensive actions. One can see that they're following the inertia. They're still bringing teachers to this region, but they're not doing proper military exercises. If anything, they're figuring out how to defend themselves. So in Zaporozhye, they actually stopped advancing in the way to capture any territory. Their main task appears to be to inflict as much damage to Ukrainian forces as they can. And it doesn't quite work for them. It works in reverse, but you know. And are they not advancing on Zaporozhye? No, they're not. It's us. So they're building a group way south of Vasilievka and Mikhailovka. Why? Because HIMARS can reach them. They're starting to build their new groups several dozen kilometers away from the front, which doesn't quite help them to either supply logistics or enforce engineering and production success. Putin's group actually can't think forward, because they wouldn't be able to rule the country for 22 years otherwise. But they're still trying to, use some special forces, maybe special jets, plane groups to attack and capture HIMARS, but destroy them. But it's not really working. It is still a catastrophe, though. 50 shots in the last week, not a single intercept, not a single miss. 10 HIMARS are taking out their supply lines. When we get more, what will happen? So Putin understands, I think, that his window of opportunity is closing. What do you think about that scenario, the catastrophic scenario? Let me describe it. July 15th, Russia tries to advance everywhere. Kharkov, Zaporozhye, Slaviansk. They're using Iskanders on the border with Ukraine to hit targets about 500 kilometers in. Su-24 that are flying in Belarus. Those are the ones that Putin was asking Lukashenko to donate him. They could carry out a few missions from Belarus, maybe possibly trying to attack HIMARS. X or Ha-31 are pretty accurate missiles. And then Putin comes out and claims that Ukraine shot up Belarus and Belgrade and announces mobilization. What do you think in that scenario is not possible? This is very funny, actually. One can ask two questions. So we're kind of going into the comedy club skit land. Question number one, what is he going to use to accomplish that? The only direction where they can do anything is maybe Kharkov, because they got 144th Division there and a brigade of the Arctic Fleet and maybe 80th Armored Vehicle Brigade somewhere in the bushes. But the thing is, that's the same thing they've done on the 24th of February on a much larger scale versus what they can do now by straining all their efforts, everything they have. Problem is also that right now we are mobilized and we have defense lines set up, which we did not back in February. And third, When this all fails, what next? They can say on the first channel in Russia that everything is successful. What's successful? They took Kiev? Any regional center they can maybe capture? No, they won't. And I said, after they took Lysychansk, this is the last operative success of Russian army. No measures, in superscript, no measures taken by Russian army will change that flow. And they had a top of their game maybe 3 weeks ago. Now it'll be a plateau for a bit. They got 40 divisions, battalion tactical groups, Slaviansk-Kramatorsk area. But then after that, it'll start declining, slowly but steadily. And we'll make sure that with our Western allies, that this graph follows that line. And then there'll be a moment when we'll start going forward. And I don't know what they'll be saying on their first channel. That's a big question. I think there'll be a lot of acts of goodwill. We acted with goodwill and left this, that, and this, because that'll be the only way for them to somehow explain what they're doing. And those Belarus jets, Roman Svitan, another correspondent of ours, told us that it kind of looks scary when it flies right next to the Ukraine border. Remember Winnie the Pooh? That buzzing sound is not for nothing. Yeah, they're flying for a reason, and they've shot this night at Zaporozhye with a few missiles. They're hitting Mykolaiv. The weird thing is they're using S-300, S-400. These are the ones that can be used not just on the air-to-air, but also air-to-ground targets. And they're shooting up Mykolaiv. This is not from things being shiny, because there is not a single house in Nikolaev that will cost as much as one of these missiles. And that just shows you the depth of their despair. So what else can they do? Oh yeah, and Yulia Latynina, they fired 3 shots, and we got anti-air systems that shot all 3 of them down. So I don't know if they want to be that active. Where will they take a group that maybe at least 10 times weaker than the one they used on the 24th of February? They still don't have that. And if they manage to get the aviation and start getting into our airspace, we'll shoot them down. And you think you can also reach beyond the border? Who knows, things happen. And what if Lukashenko brings his Belarus army to attack you? Well, this will probably be the biggest one-time resupply of our military from Belarus. Thank you to our Belarus friends. Julia, simple thought here. They cannot even replicate a 10th of February 24th right now. If we survived February 24th, what else can they throw at us? This war is done. Technically, it's done with. It's just a train that follows inertia. It's completely engulfed in flames and will soon fall off the cliff, but they're still going through motions. So these 2 weeks with HIMARS is Putin's Stalingrad. This is Kursk Bulge. A couple of clarifying moments. Actually, let me go back here. And I apologize for interrupting you back. Kursk Bulge was an operative success of German army. They broke Russian front. They did not allow Russian troops to go into counteroffensive. They won it on the operative level, just like Russians won Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. But strategically, it was a defeat, because they lost the last reserve that would allow them to do any further advancements later. It's the same thing that's happening now. They're still trying to do something with Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, but what happened with Lysychansk, that took away all their capability. And right now it's the holiday of HIMARS, or HIMARS in direct transliteration in Ukrainian. So when historians will be writing about this war, they'll probably state that Putin's regime was killed by 10 Western vehicles. I don't know how he was planning to fight with NATO, because 10 vehicles, I don't know what it is. It could be like sci-fi tank mammoth from Strugatsky with nuclear defense and attack. That should not be able to change the flow of war. This should not have happened. 10 vehicles do not change the flow of war with the normal army. So half the Russians are lacking any energy support. They don't have natural gas in their stoves at home. And they sacrifice some of their money, some of their income for that military capability. What capability? The Russian army exists, and kinda they cannot fulfill any of the command's goals set by its command in front of it. This is Yulia Latynina. We're discussing the possibilities or the possible strategic outcomes of what's happening on the front. I see some messages in the chat. Some people are complaining that there are some issues with our live cast. I hope it'll come back in a proper way. We'll have 140,000 watching us. Please do not forget to subscribe, share, and leave your likes. Alexey, you said that Putin was enraged by the loss of a big number of his higher-level military command. At the very beginning of war, Ukrainian troops and you personally talked about Russia losing certain generals. I think you counted 10 or 15 generals. That was not quite supported with data. I have a feeling that maybe you said that to support the mood, but right now we see that this actually is happening in real. I did not say that to lighten the mood. We actually counted, and I announced what we counted. 2 of them did show up again later. So remember I said when we counted 9, there were actually 7 who died. 2 of them were found to be alive later. So 2 out of 9 is not too bad. Now it's probably 15 plus or minus. I kind of stopped counting them after the first dozen. And after the war, after the start of the war, it was sort of a shock. It seemed to be a wrong tactics, some issues with the big continental warfare, and then they changed some of their strategic motions. They saw that the amount of surrendering troops decreased, and they thought that they're generally okay. And then all of a sudden they start getting casualties again, higher level casualties again. And then the question comes up, all these reports that you've been making about progress, what is about? Let me go over the losses they had. For over 10 days in July, medical establishments, hospitals in Lugansk area got about 500 plus wounded servicemen, 180 Russian cadre military, 300 and something from Donetsk and Lugansk republics, 20-something people without identification of military belonging, probably commercials from Wagner Group, and 120 plus dead bodies in the morgues of the cadre Russian soldiers. So imagine what's going on. This is just 10 days. Kherson region is no less hot. Kharkov is no less hot. Zaporozhye a bit slower, but is still hot. Not a single army in the world is giddily facing these losses. I think when they were singing songs about the operative victories with Lysychansk, they're trying to repeat that story in direction of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. It's been just 10 days. And let's say in Morg, there are just maybe a half of who's left in the fields. So imagine 200 dead. Maybe on 1 or 2 operative directions during 10 days. In a 90-day campaign, multiply by 9, probably about 3,000 dead, plus 7 to 10 wounded. So where do you get that many troops to leave 10,000 dead and wounded per town? Nobody can afford to do that. Even Russian Federation, that is used to fight with meat and throwing it into a grinder, but you need to know also how to use that meat. It's not, I personally do not count people as meat. I don't like doing it even to the opponents. I'm putting it in parentheses as some people use it. But they'll just grind themselves out. These 50 battalion tactical groups from Izum to Popasna that they have now, they are already at half force. So there's probably 12 to 13,000. Maybe with all artillery and logistics, they would have 15 to 20,000 people. And losing 200 dead and 600 wounded every 10 days, 800 people lost in 10 days. How many towns will it take if you have 20,000 people? 10 days minus 1,000. 10 days minus 1,000. A loss of a third of a group is a loss of its battle worthiness. And after that, it just increases further. Yeah, you can bring 164th Division, 2 Arctic brigades, but this is like heating your house with dollar bills. What are they counting on? We'll see on the 15th and later. I don't think there is anything they can rely on. The only measures they can take is, even if they have a proper political statement, is to try to address the moods within the Russian Federation. It's not. I think it's not an occasional event that they ordered these polls in the country, because they ran into some issues and they're trying to find a way to remedy that nobody supports them. Victorious Parts, American congressman, announced that Yermak may be a Russian spy and requested materials proving or disproving that from American intel. I can comment on that I actually met her in person. I know her. To a degree I could. She's a person who is really worried about Ukraine, but she's so sincere and so emotional about that some people who were in her group, who were guiding her around, with whom she talked unofficially, used that vibrating string of consciousness that she has and the feeling for Ukraine to attack and achieve their own political gains, to attack Yermak, basically. And American Senate and Congress is facing elections soon, so that fight is over re-elections is pretty serious. And she actually gave a second interview later. She said she doesn't know it for sure. She says that you're not preparing for war. There is a big contrast. There are a lot of young guys dying on the front, and you're in Kiev just sitting and drinking coffee. And when I asked who is distributing American help, I was told this is Yermak. For big politics, even for high society conversation, this is not exactly an affirmation. I was told that. And for the level of big politics, especially intergovernmental politics, this is not a successful move on her behalf, to say the least. And then Yermak is the main representative on the American direction in Ukraine. And now the question, all the 19 American intel agencies have no idea whom they deal with. He is their representative on our side. He is basically their interface point on our side. They don't understand whom they work with, or... And I have a feeling that Zelensky might know it better as well, right? He's basically fighting with Russia, and he knows, then this congresswoman knows about his own people. True, and there are some suspicions that Ukrainian special services are not sleeping either. And frankly, when president asks them to check somebody, and it's their direct reliability, because whenever you take such a position, just by fact of it that you are there is a counterintelligence case started against you. So if they had any grain of real evidence, president would have seen them, trust me. We're waiting for that. Nothing comes up. Let's also remember English, American, English, German, and other special services. He's the point of contact for many of them. And there is no data supporting that. Congresswoman was told, that was what was said, that somebody told her. So it's probably one of the mayors, maybe two of the mayors, did say something to that effect to her. And she worries about Ukraine, but she just doesn't know details about how American help is being rationed. Yermak himself doesn't take part in that. It is Ministry of Defense that is in charge of rationing what is coming and sending to different fronts. Only they know what comes and what is being sent where. So Yermak cannot say that 10 of these vehicles and that many ammo pieces going to that brigade, and that brigade is not getting anything because that's how I say that. That's not what Yermak is doing. He could have and he should have if he would be doing as she described, but no, that's not his modus operandi. So Russia actually published some materials that the first line of attack for them is the green team, so to say. This is a team that I'm part of. And it's hard to attack Zelensky because Zelensky is a flag, but there is a whole line of people there who are working on different aspects. Like me, like Yermak, like others, and it's easier to attack us. Problem on the Russian side that even though they suggested this what happened, that they peddled these ideas through, but it didn't fly. Our population did not bite, so they're upset about it. And personally, I think this case can be taken not just to the inner political fighting in the United States. I think that Pani Victoria is really concerned about Ukraine and is trying to help Ukraine. And it just was unfortunate that some of the opposition leaders here who have their own political agenda managed to push the right buttons in her, so she would get her concerns about the people who actually are doing their job. And that's kind of a next step. These people, when they're who are pushing the buttons, it takes some time to understand that soldiers are fighting actually to allow the cities to have a little bit of a peaceful life and have that coffee. So I think some of the mayors that she was meeting, I kind of know who pushed these buttons on her. It's probably the mayor of Dnipro, Filatov, and the leader of National Corpus, Andrei Beletsky. You did mention that you can gauge by certain details that Russia is getting ready to give up Kherson. I would say they are not getting ready to really give it up, but they changed the direction of their operative efforts. So what do people do who want to stay in the city longer? They're trying to fortify whatever helps them to do the referendum, and at the same time they're behaving as people who are not planning to stay on this territory. Is it because they're stealing grain, metal? Yeah, they're stealing everything. They're loading and shipping it away. They're also doing pretty harsh repressions of the local populace. They're doing it as people who are not going to stay. So these repressions, they indicate that because they thought about these concentration camps even before the occupation, it tells maybe that they're going to stay. No, it tells only in the case if you're doing these repressions, trying to find the pro-Ukrainian group, but then you also try to be very neutral to everybody else. So you're trying to pretend to be just. Nothing like that we observe. There's just a steamroll. They're not trying to buy your loyalty. They just do the operations. And in Russia, they're doing weird steps too. They recently put themselves in the news by arresting a scientist who is developing UAVs for them, who had a terminal cancer. They arrested him and put him in jail, and he died there. The thing is, again, coming back to Kherson, if you are planning to stay in the area, you need to repress the ones who are against you and to feed the ones who are for you, or at least neutral. I don't see that feeding part. So all their negotiations and everything is very formal. It's not deep. They're basically going through the motions because they were told to do so. They don't have their service, professional knowledge to resolve things in the manner that the questions were posted. I just know how they communicate with directors of schools, the heads of the industry, heads of the manufacturing companies. All that preparation is done very lackadaisical, and perhaps they don't care, they just want to make money and just, sell whatever they can. But I would say that the enemy is never dumb. Enemy is always observing and noticing things. So somebody on their side should understand that to obtain any loyalty in the repressions, they need to create a group that actually likes them and supports them. And so far, we don't see them buying people. We see them only oppressing and attacking people. We actually have a training now. They're giving us more HIMARS. Thing is, when our troops get to Kherson, there may be a case that nobody will be there to defend it, because they won't have gasoline for maneuver, they won't have additional ammo dumps. This is Yulia Latynina and Alexey Arestovych who are discussing what Putin can do on the 15th of July to retaliate to the previous activities. It appears we've had some more issues in the stream, but we still have thousands of people watching us live. And again, do not forget, please subscribe. And we're talking for over 46 minutes. I actually had a very serious subject I wanted to touch. Maybe in the next stream, because it's pretty serious. But it sounds like this. Let me maybe bring it up instead of just explaining it. So I was thinking when I was reading Putin's article about Ukraine, and that Ukraine doesn't exist, it was an artificial construct. I thought that in today's world, any use of history to achieve your goals is sort of fascistic. Would you agree with that statement? It is perhaps as one of the leading signals, yes, because fascism is maybe a little too hard to label it, because a lot of people are trying to use history in different for different purposes, but perhaps using it as the myth of the golden past. Like Mussolini, let's restore the ideas of the old world and get Ethiopia added to our country. Or in the country where the icons are next to the pictures of Nicholas II. That looked fascistic. When history serves as a girl who's been thrown to the hungry troops to service them, this is kind of a godless approach. And if it is not fascism, there is something anti-humanistic in that, because without the past there is no future, but at the same time people who bend history over into a continuous loop, they do not need future. They only need past to justify their current present. They always live in the current present. So Putin doesn't have any other arguments. I think that's the way he thinks. When people are trying to find political or economic or any other reasons, language reasons for that war, this is idiocy, but this is what people bring up in relation to this war. They don't understand that you need to judge it straightforward. If he says it's a metaphysical frame, this is exactly what it means to him. You need to hit him back on the same metaphysical frame and not on some political about uranium war and maybe our politics or anything else. So you need to play on the same field with him. And you need to say that Prokopovich was wrong, and whatever he did needs to be played back. We did promise our listeners to talk about Prokopovich in the next cast, because we're kind of running out of time now. Alexey, thank you. Thank you bunches. I think we'll talk about Prokopovich in the fifth project. I was amazed by your thesis. That Ukraine is a full-fledged inheritant of the Russian Empire. Not even we did not just inherit it. We actually created that. We're responsible for the creation of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. And these are the thoughts that some people are running away from. Besides it being completely obvious, there was Nikolai Trubetskoy in the 19th century who dedicated his whole life to figuring out the Ukrainian influence on the Russian history. When he was asked about that influence, he said it was all defining. And we do have people right now who want to present Ukraine as the victim of Russian Empire. And they're talking about millions of dead Ukrainians, which were. But there were also millions of Russians who suffered from the empire. And they're one of the most suffered peoples of that geopolitical unity. Ukrainians, of course, suffered too during the Second World War and before that, but the main suffering part of that is peoples of Russia. They actually take the brunt of that horrible agglomeration. And we do talk, there are a lot of people on our side, though, who just play it very simple, that Russians are bad, they all are bad, they all need to be killed. Some even want to castrate all of them. And Alexey, we got to be careful in commenting that, because we don't want to fall into that exact wild territory. We don't want to look like those famous Muslim moms who scream after each terrorist act that Muslims are different. You should not paint a religion of peace with dirt. I think we're fighting for the right to say as we speak. I don't want to live in the country where we need to choose words. I want to live in a country where I have a freedom of speech, when I can express what I think. You know what some of these activists are fighting for? to change the way we can speak, to change languages. Like some people on the West are also replacing some words and insisting on use of the new frames. This is not really about history, this is more about power. And this is really the chase for power. Some people who can not even gather like 30,000 for their cast, like we did at the beginning. Oh, actually, we had an issue. Sometime we had issue with the stream today. It's okay. It's not that problem. People will watch us in record. I'm talking about people who cannot gather a significant audience. They're trying to use that new framework, new language, new syntax to push others out of the frame. Those who cannot use certain words need to... My question is, how do you then differ from Putinism, from people's in Putin's Russia? You need to be free to use any definitions you like, without dictating what is useful to be used, what is not. I'm just thinking, Alexey, that this is war and you need to pick certain approach. How do you say that? It depends upon the framework. Like, if there is a fight, people rarely say how wonderful you are. Usually both belligerents, that's why they're called belligerents, because they do call each other in different names. I have actually a joke about that, an anecdote. There is a medieval fight going on. One of the lords, the war is almost over, his troops are finishing, and he kind of takes the armor off, and he sees that in one place there is still some fighting going on. And he sees a wounded enemy who's fending off the attackers, who destroyed 10. So the Lord sends his knights to get him, sends to bring him back. He destroyed those. So he got another 20-30 people, sent at them, he destroyed them as well. So he got wounded by 2 more arrows, brought him back finally to his prison, and he basically said, I've seen a lot of warriorship, but I've never seen anybody like you. So tell me, how are you fighting? Why are you so brave? Like, I'm mercenary, Your Majesty. I'm just fighting for money. That's how you fight, for money? I thought there's got to be some ideological reason for your bravery. For example, I fight for honor. You know, Your Majesty, everybody fights for what he's lacking. And on this wonderful story about knighthood, we're finishing this stream. Thank you, Alexey, and thank you to Julia. Alright, now we have 34,000 people watching us. We're not as big as Fagin. Please subscribe and share your likes. I think we'll return to the question about Feofan Prokopovich, the founder of Russian Empire. If nothing extraordinary happens on the 15th of July, or some unexpected buff, but something might, I guess, surprise us, Vladimir. I have a ton of more questions that I will ask you next week. Thank you, everybody. Everything the best. Goodbye, Alexey. Bye, Julia. And to my viewers, I want to ask one little thing. On Monday, we'll do a big stream, and it'll be a stream. Please vote and send your comments. It'll be a stream about Putin's nuclear weapons, or it'll be a stream about the history of Byzantine. Please choose what you like. That depends on you. Everything the best. It was Yulia Latynina and Alexey Arestovych. Thank you, Dasha, for supporting us. I was a bit nervous about the interruptions. We also have a cat, Necktie, who's still sleeping to the side of me. He was kind of hidden behind Alexey, but now you can see him in the armchair. Subscribe. Don't forget to share that stream, and we might have a little bit of a cast in English maybe tomorrow, or maybe Alexey Minelo with the Russian polling about what they think about the special operation. Thank you and
Юль,
goodbye.
похоже, у вас был медленный интернет, это из-за этого было.
Да, вот тут была просто какая-то задница, Валя.
Ладно.
Да, чуть-чуть оно не... Причем у меня был именно медленный, но он... Да, он...
Сейчас будем еще
Так.
перезагружать все. Так, вы там отключаете?
Да, все, я нажимаю.
Юль, я сейчас перезагружу студийный комп,